In the early summer of 1989, thousands of student demonstrators and their supporters amassed in the heart of Beijing, protesting for democracy for the Chinese people. Sadly, as I talked in the last video, the Chinese authoritarian regime controlled by Deng Xiaoping finally led the brutal crackdown called Tiananmen Square Massacre. 1 year later, another protest occurred, this time in Taipei's Chiang Kai-Shek Memory Hall. The torch has been passed, and now it was the turn of Taiwan's young and promising future to protest against their authoritarian regime. Instead of sending in tanks to guide his own people into the road, Taiwanese President Teng-hui invited the leaders of the student movement into presently building, heard their concerns, and promised to implement their demands. 6 years later, Teng-hui was re-elected, not by members of his own party, but by the general Taiwanese public, becoming the first democratically elected president in Taiwanese history. Today, the island nation of Taiwan boasts one of the most progressive societies on the Pacific Rim. But it was not always this way. Why there are two Chinas in the world? Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Christopher Tian. Today's video, let's talk about Taiwan history. Maybe you don't hear Taiwan, but I'm sure your life cannot continue without Taiwan because this island country products 62% chips of the world. If Taiwan was gone in some reason, your laptop, iPhone, auto-drive car also will disappear. Let's talk about the history of Taiwan. Before the 17th century, the majority of Taiwan population was Austronesian. The Chinese craftsmen, pirate, and trader made up only a small proportion of the population. Initially, in the era of geographic discoveries, the island was under Portuguese rule and was named Formosa. Subsequently, the Dutch East India Company established itself on the southern coast, and the Spanish established themselves on the northern edge. The Dutch desired to get rid of their trade rivals, and swore enemies spurred them to war with the other Spanish colony of Taiwan, then culminated in a victory for the Dutch in 1642. Despite being only 100 miles of what is known southern East Chinese coastline, Taiwan exists outside of Chinese civilizations, the sphere of influence of the later dynasty history. From the 17th century onward, beginning with the Dutch, then a ruled Chinese pirate king, then the Great Qing, an imperial Chinese dynasty founded by the northern Manchu people. It was only during Qing rule, as recently as around 200 years ago, that the island of Taiwan became predominantly Chinese in character, with vagabond adventurers and fortune seekers from Fujian province migrating by the thousands each year and assimilating indigenous tribes of the western plains. You can always hear that the CCP claimed Taiwan belonged to China since a long time ago. But if you think a little bit more, you'll find it very absurd. The totalitarian regime CCP only has several decades history. Why they claim Taiwan belonged to China 1,000 years ago? On the one hand, the CCP came from Kuomintang and never take over in history. They just portion Kuomintang to Taiwan and never be the government of Taiwan in history. So there is no any reason asking Taiwan come back to China. On the other hand, even according to the logic that CCP inherited Qing dynasty regime, it just several hundred years history. According to this theory, the Netherlands also have the right to claim Taiwan should belong to themselves, and they does like Taiwan more earlier, right? So we can find out that CCP doesn't obey the rules or logic. They only recognize the result which has the advantage for itself, never believe what CCP promised, and find the flaw to fight back. Back to the history. In 1895, the newly industrialized empire of Japan thrashed the defeated Qing dynasty in the First Sino-Japanese War. In the subsequent Treaty of Shimonoseki, China ceded a gift by goodies to Japan, including the island of Taiwan. Thus, from 1895 onward, Taiwan entered a 50-year period as a Japanese colony. By the 1930s, Taiwan enjoyed a much higher standard of living than mainland China, much of which was still stuck in a pre-industrial state. But the Taiwanese were still second-class citizens living under foreign occupation. All the highest levels in government were reserved for ethnic Japanese, and the Japanese military and police were swift in eradicating any dissent against their rule, killing tens of thousands of Taiwanese over the years. After the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, the era of Japan's colonial empire ended. Unfortunately, as one war ended, another began. Civil war between the nationalists and the communists of China. By the end of 1949, the Communist Party and its Red Army, led by Mao Zedong, had defeated Chiang Kai-shek, who fled with more than 1 million anti-communist supporters to the island of Taiwan. This is how one China became two, which is still kept two China today. China is officially known as the People's Republic of China. It believes Taiwan belongs to them, see it as a renegade province that needs to be unified with the mainland. Taiwan, on the other hand, formally refers to itself as the Republic of China, and while most of the world doesn't officially recognize it as an independent country, it sure does have a lot of the characters of one. It has its own unique identity, its own military, flag, currency, and government. So Taiwan is actually an independent country and makes an important role in the modern electronic industry, which I'll explain in next video. Both countries were ruled by authoritarian regime in the late 1960s. They carried a brutal repression against their political opponents, turned the election into a sham, and imposed severe censorship. Chiang Kai-Shek created a single dictatorship in the Republic of China in Taiwan, and Mao Zedong established a totalitarian regime in China. After the death of Chiang Kai-shek, his son Chiang Ching-kuo came to power in Taiwan and ruled until 1988. He abolished martial law and eased censorship. During the regime of his successor, Teng-hui, the country underwent final democratization and held the first parliamentary elections. This reform gave the Taiwanese complete political freedom. This is the brief history of Taiwan. In the next video, I'll explain why China never invaded Taiwan, although CCP, or the biggest dictator Xi Jinping, wants very much. Taiwan economic, especially in chip industry, and the difference of innovation between Taiwan and Ukraine. If you like my video, please favorite, subscribe, and forward. Any questions or suggestions, comment below. See you next video. Bye.